This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social. Delighted to be joined, as always, by Chris Eubank Sr. English. Nice to see you again. It's been a long while. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. I just came back from Africa and the Middle East, and I just want to say again, Africa, Africa, Africa. I've got to get used to saying this because the time I've spent in Rwanda and Nairobi, or Kenya, has been very surprising. It's a very well kept secret, is Africa. So I'm going to start tracking the entire continent. It's a beautiful place. And I suppose, yes, been to, before this last trip, 3-4 places in Africa, but it is sensational because it's like a new frontier, and it's lush, and nothing like what you hear in the news. It's incredible.
I've only been to Africa once. I've been to North Africa. I went to Morocco in the middle of last year. So you went to Rwanda. What were you doing out there?
Guerrilla trekking.
Okay.
Yeah, and looking for what I haven't been taught, which is about something that I am. I'm an African. I was born here in the United Kingdom. I am English. I am, an Englishman. But I don't know Africa, and I have to know Africa, especially with what I've seen. Rwanda, can you imagine that? I haven't seen a place actually cleaner. I think with this particular president that's there, I think what he does, in actual fact, is he goes out once a month and he actually cleans the streets, and so that's something that the entire community does. They clean the streets, so there's no littering. And when I tell you it's spotless, it's spotless. And as I said, it's like a new frontier. It's fresh. For business, you can build a business there because there are so many things that actually need, let's say, upgrading. It's cool. It's warm. The weather, the temperature is extraordinary. You're talking about, in the evening, what I've got on now would be too warm to wear. In the daytime, you've got 26, 27 degrees. It's just a very well-kept secret. Africa.
Africa.
Africa. One more time.
Africa.
That's right.
Okay. So with a bit of conviction.
Yes.
What was guerrilla trekking like?
Beautiful. Yeah, it's amazing. I looked at the silverback, and I was surprised he was looking at me. Almost like he knew me. Like, where you been? The eye contact stayed for a good 4 seconds. That's a long time. If you're staring me out in a fight, to look at me for 2 seconds, you can't do it if you're not a fighter. This gorilla was like, where you been, man? I'm telling you, it was really something, and I'm going to upload that to my YouTube channel in the not too distant future, in the next couple of days.
We'll let you off for the plug on a separate YouTube channel because I like you English, so how's that? You've also been out in America. Now, this is not news to me because we've done several interviews in the past, but the most recent of which was before the GROVES fight with Chris Eubank Jr. You actually showed me your badge, which was very privileged for me. How's that all been going, Sergeant Eubank?
The work is fulfilling. Effectively, it's not that I've done the work to become an officer. To the bigots out there who like to throw stones at anything that I do, neither did Elvis Presley. He was made an FBI agent without any training, and I was made, a dual distinction officer, deputy marshal and sergeant, without the training. Why? Because of the amount of people who have witnessed my contests and the philosophy of chivalry. Protecting and serving, looking after the female state, the prerequisites to actually achieving in your life and being a whole person. So we're talking then about manners, we're talking about punctuality, dignity, we're talking about chivalry, we're talking about valor, we're talking about being gallant. All of these principles which make you a champion before you get the belt or before you win the prize. And when you actually, even if you don't win the prize, you're still a champion. I was a champion long before I won the belt. It was my behavior. So it's almost like it became almost like a given that I was going to get the championship. Why? Because I was going to apply myself to the principles of my trade, integrity, the golden thread of integrity. You know, following the code, running when you're supposed to in the morning, not going to clubs, not doing things you shouldn't be doing, not doing ordinary things. You want to be exceptional? You're going to have to be exceptional. And it's not then about telling people how you've been exceptional, it's about keeping quiet about it and carrying on with the work. And that's how you get and make yourself distinctive, or it's how you win distinction. Which, in fact, is quite a lonely life, because when you do this, you become a hero to the masses. And when you become a hero to the masses, you can't really hang around with them. You're always kind of like the example. So, yeah, no bad language, you know, any trouble happening, anyone being untoward, you got to calm them down. You know, you become the policeman in the room. Lonely, but a great vocation. I don't like it. I love it.
That actually reminds me of something I saw quite recently. I saw a tweet from a young boy, I believe, words to that effect. You quote tweeted it. Words to that effect. I think a lot of people, or certainly some people that I saw, weren't particularly pleased with your wording. Just explain that for me. Explain what your intentions were with that tweet.
My intentions were to actually speak to the wider audience. Okay, so to Zachary himself, don't do it, Zachary. Really? Well, then how kids work is, I'm going to do it, you say don't do it. But to the wider audience, if you do it, if you're going to become a fighter, you cannot fight outside the ring. That is a beautiful principle. 1. 2, you always have to be continuously chivalrous, meaning you always have to be protective of the female state, you always have to be gallant, you always have to act with integrity, you always have to respect your elders. So everything is in that when you talk about continuously being chivalrous. Speaking about the fact that it is a lonely life because you become effectively a hero to the masses. This is why Muhammad Ali stood out like he did, because he stood up for the small man or the disenfranchised. So overall, you know, all the people out there who may berate it, it wasn't about the kid. It's about the community at large. Let's look after the community at large. And I did exactly what the father asked in terms of encouraging this kid, because perhaps he's cleverer than a lot of people who commented in the negative.
I'm going to just leave it there because I'm done trying to process some of the information that you give me, but I see you have a rationale for that, so that's fantastic. Moving on, you've been to Africa. You've been to America. You're now back in Brighton. Is it good to be back?
I'm actually in London, and I come down, as I have to overlook and see what's happening. And, you know, I'm just observing. Junior knows what he's doing, and he seems to be happy. And it's going to be a tough fight. What's going to happen is James is on his game. I've heard that he's really on his game, and so, you know, it's not about, the guy's on the decline. Junior's not fighting someone on the decline. He's fighting James DeGale. So decline doesn't come into it. So don't underestimate your man, because he will be up for this. So that's why it's going to be a very good fight. So ITV, Al Heyman have been very clever in actually putting these two combatants together.
This is a fight that you yourself and Junior have lobbied for a long period of time. Did you ever think that this would actually happen? James DeGale has in the past pretty much poo-pooed the idea, and now the fight is happening. Is it a surprise to you?
No, of course not. If you're in the same trade, then you know it's going to come about when you're the same weight. So, when someone talks something down, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It has to happen. You're in the same weight. And then, obviously, the bad blood from the sparring session all those years ago, and the behavior of, or the words, or the language, or the mindset of James, our son, I say our son because effectively there are sons, and it's really a sport to the spectators. So, we wish him no ill. We wish him, a safe fight. If Junior turns up, then he's in danger. If Junior doesn't turn up, who knows what's going to happen.
Now you mentioned that if Junior turns up, are you referring to past performances where Chris hasn't shown what you believe is his best form?
Yeah, he hasn't. Against Groves, he didn't show his best form. He didn't turn up to that fight. That was sometimes said of myself in my career, that sometimes I didn't show up. Certainly in the Saunders fight, he didn't show up. Well, he showed up 6 rounds later. Yeah, 6 rounds later. No, you can't do that. So no, I think he's going to be okay. But let's see.
Why is that? Forgive me, a genetic predisposition to it? I mean, you've just mentioned the fact that you've done it in your career, Chris has done it in his career. Why is that? Is that just happy coincidence? Is there something in the DNA, as it were? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my only thoughts are really that when I was involved in important contests, which were going to actually guide or steer or traject the path of my life, I didn't fail. You can't fail in important contests, and this is one for Junior. It's an important contest.
The most important contest of his career?
Financially it is, because the winner of this fight wins a pay-per-view platform. Over the last 2.5 years, I've done everything I can, at the expense of my family structure, at the expense of my dignity, at the expense of my reputation, to stay with ITV, because I believe, it can be much bigger than Sky, but Sky is far more aggressive than ITV. That's all it is. So we just want, or I can see where if ITV becomes aggressive in this field, that they can become a juggernaut, effectively. So I've stayed with it, and so, Junior now has the ability to win a pay-per-view platform, as well as, a huge career with Al Heyman. That's my management skills at play. And keep in mind, all you fighters, never let anyone talk down who I am. If they say that he's eccentric, you can't listen to him, he's crazy, yes, because I've been a fighter. So you should want to hear what advice I have for you coming up in this game. And remember that I view you as family. The rest of the guys outside of the four-cornered circle, the ring, they don't know what you go through. I know what you go through. I'm on your side. So listen to the wisdom of my experience. You've got nothing to lose. You don't have to accept it. But surely, do not switch your minds off to someone who is a benchmark.
So by that token, the James DeGale fight, in effect, is the most important fight of Chris's career. Is he the most difficult opponent of Chris's career?
He could be. He could be. Because you've got tools, you've got your punches, you've got your strategy. It's whether you can apply yourself to the correct strategy.
We've mentioned already the sparring of years gone by. You've already said that you don't believe that James is on the decline. You believe he'll show up. What's changed, though, since those sparring? In both Chris, in both James, in yourself even, what has changed since those early days when Chris and James first sparred?
Well, I don't know what goes on in the mind of anybody else. So, I don't know. I know in my mind it doesn't change. I have mastered this particular craft, this art. I'm not bigging myself up, but sit me in front of any of the trainers. We're only going to agree. Because really, the ingredients are all the same. You don't underestimate anyone. When you do, you don't have your firepower. Fear. Without fear, you don't have spark. You don't have the impetus to actually do the work you're supposed to do. All of these principles and the spiritual aspect of the sport comes into play. So I can make sense of it. And speaking to these other trainers, they would say, well, there's nothing wrong in what he's saying. No one's going to teach me, sorry, let me rephrase that. It's going to be very hard to teach someone like any fighter who's been in there at this level, at top level, and have come through fights, who have taken beatings, who have done their losing, who have done their winning, who have won championships, who have lost championships. You know, and if you're cognitive, which by the grace of God I remain cognitive, I can put it all together. I can connect the dots. So don't let anyone talk me down saying, oh, you can't listen to him. Yes, you can. You don't have to actually take the advice, but I'm sure if you actually speak or hear what I have to say, it will only better you. So there you are.
Just picking up on what you've just said there about kind of underestimating your man and potentially not having that spark, do you think that's potentially what happened with Chris Eubank Jr. against George Groves and before that, Billy Joe?
Yeah, most certainly, yeah. Billy Joe, not so much, but certainly with George Groves, because he had beaten him up so terribly for maybe, I don't know how many sparring sessions. You know, he would have beaten George Groves up like 90% of the time. It was embarrassing. I mean, I remember saying to George, don't be dejected. He was sitting on the chair, hands down, head down. I said, he was getting ready to fight DeGale. I said, that's why you're going to beat him. You're going to beat him because you're under pressure here. It's good for you. You can confirm that when you speak to him next. Or in fact, for the doubters or for people who may want to verify what I'm saying, write to George. George will remember that. I said, don't be dejected. It's good. He's on top of you. That means you're going to win. When your sparring is comfortable, you're in a bad position.
Just a final word on George Groves. He's recently announced his retirement from the sport.
Yeah.
Just your word on him and his career and what he achieved in his career.
I don't think he's retired. I think he'll come back. George, you know, you've got these guys out there, they're called promoters. And then you have also out there the world of ego, which you are very steady on, in actual fact. You're very steady. Your frequency is cool, you know, a gentleman, gallant, even. But you have the temptation of the world. And as Oscar Wilde said, I can resist everything except temptation. And so these people will continue to tempt you because you make money for them. Okay? You are a draw. Okay? And the way you kind of lost against Callum, there's no shame in that. You know, that was, and let me tell you what, you, sir, you said something that makes you, in my mind, it's what champions are made of. You said, I'm so embarrassed that I got caught with a body shot. I'm so embarrassed. That's the language of a champion. Humility, you know, not haughty, you know, that, I love that. And so, you know, I don't say I want you back because I know how hard this game is and I know the commitment you have to make. I know the sacrifices. I know the solitude of the life of a fighter. So not that I say I want you back, but the promoters are not going to leave you alone. Why? Because you are a money spinner. You can fight, sir.
Did you just give George Groves a lot of compliments there? English?
Nothing he hasn't earned.
Absolutely, I agree. One thing that I would like to talk to you about, and this is something that George mentioned in his retirement and has mentioned since, is his fight with Edward Goodnecht, which impacted on him later on in his career. He said after that fight, he kind of looked for an exit route. Now, you have previous in your career with Michael Watson. Do you think that the fact that he's called it a day now and has mentioned that quite starkly, you've been on record and said that the Michael Watson fight changed you, it removed a killer instinct from you. Once that goes, and in George's opinion it has, Do you still see him coming back? Do you still see that fire burning in him?
I'm not doing some big prediction here. No, I don't think he's retired. No, what it is sometimes you have knee-jerk reactions. Even though he's a steady man, his frequency is steady, and he is he uses forethought. He thinks first before he talks. Okay, so he's an intelligent man. Still, the promoters are, they will pursue him. Okay, and he will see something that will be tempting to him, which is, well, I can do better than that, and I want that. And remember, when you're a fighter, you love the public, and you love when the public loves you. Okay? And the public will not leave him alone. They're going to say, well, surely you can beat this guy. If from a bodily point of view, he doesn't have injuries like his shoulder, if he can overcome all of that, I think, and especially at this age, how old is he now?
30 or 31? 30, I think.
Yeah, well, certainly if he is 31, those promoters are going to be after him like white on rice. And it is tempting because they're gonna butter him up, They're gonna be like, come on, you, come on, come on, jump up, let me burp you. They're gonna offer him things, okay, and they're gonna put him on TV, and his own ego will, well, how can I turn it down? Watch what happens. Is what I say. If it's not true what I'm saying, it's interesting, isn't it?
By that rationale, if Chris Eubank Jr. comes through James DeGale, will he be calling for a rematch with George Groves? Is that a fight that you would like to see him take to right what he, and I'm sure you perceive as a wrong?
You would have to actually ask Junior that.
I did ask him earlier.
Well, I can't.
Now I'm asking you.
But you can't ask me because I'm not in his head.
Would you like to see that fight?
Again, you see, what satisfies my son? It's not about me. It's about him. Okay? If he would like a rematch, then okay. But I don't know. I'm not even talking about my son. I'm talking about George. Okay. I'm saying, you've retired. Okay, it probably took him like what, two months to come to that decision. So that seems as though it's a thought out process. So maybe he does have injuries. But let me tell you, if he can overcome those, and at 31 you still have youth. You see, what I'm not actually giving you an understanding of is how feverish the promoters are.
I understand.
If they want you. Okay? If they want you, and what they want is money. Huh? What they want is someone who can fill out a stadium. George, he does that. So even as I'm saying these things now, I'm actually making it more of a possibility that these people are going to start chasing him quicker. Come on, George, let's go out for lunch, let's go out for dinner. And then it starts, what? We could engineer this. Things are changing. The advanced technological world we're living in, you can make money by doing this. And everybody's after money in the concrete jungle. Okay, without it, you have to walk. You can't catch a bus if you don't have money. So it's always in play. Everybody wants a higher standard of living. That's why I speak about Africa like I do. Africa, you don't need a lot. Africa, you don't need a lot. Okay, and from a business point of view, it's virgin. Again, a very well kept secret. They're trying to keep people out of Africa. And I say, you know what? Go on holiday, take a look. Take a look. It's not as bad as what they say, one, and everything that they say about all of these, it's not there. I mean, a very calm, beautiful, cool, that may get me into trouble, but, I'm telling you to go on holiday. There's nothing wrong with that. Go on holiday.
Back to this fight. Chris Eubank Jr. versus James DeGale. Talk to me about this fight.
I don't think there's anything else I can say about it. Junior is on track. The work ethic has been remarkable, as always. If his mind is in the right place and he turns up, you're going to see a sensational performance. If it isn't, it'll still be a sensational performance, although he may not use the correct tools or strategy. Now, I've been talking to you now for about 35 minutes.
27 and a half.
Okay, so enough now, because I really do have to actually get back to London. Yeah.
Okay. Final one, just on Nate VASQUEZ. Now, I've had the pleasure of speaking to Ronnie Davis today, somebody who I don't need to explain to you, lovely man, very knowledgeable boxing man. He's now got some company in the corner in the shape of Nate VASQUEZ. Just your thoughts on that. Did Chris consult you before that happened?
Yes.
And your thoughts on it?
No comment.
We've done 27 and a half minutes and no comment?
Oh, yeah. I mean, no comment. What can I say?
Have you been pleased with the work?
He has to be pleased.
Okay.
You see, I know what I'm looking at. You know, if you bring somebody in to do a job, if it's the same job that I did, what are you going to show me? Something? You're going to show me something new I haven't seen?
Okay, well, just before I let you go, it is Valentine's Day today, and it's customary for me when we have our interviews to ask you for a poem, and I just wondered if you'd like to regale me with one now.
Have you heard about a story called... I don't even know the name of the story, in actual fact, but it goes as follows. Oh, no, I did that one.
Which one did you do?
Byron.
You did do that,
Yes,
yes.
okay. It's Valentine's Day, so there is another about love, which goes as follows. Now, this is to everybody, okay? Everybody. So, girls, boys, men, women, it's love, which is the most powerful energy in the universe. And the spiritual side of it is what people don't look at. Even Einstein wrote a philosophy on love, how it is the center of the universe. So it starts and it says, how much do I love thee? Let me count the ways. Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight. When feeling out of sight. For the ends of being an ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as men strive for right. I love thee purely, as they turn from praise. I love thee with a passion put to use in my old griefs, and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, and tears of all my life, and if God so chose, I shall but love thee better after death.
Chris Eubank Sr, English, always a pleasure catching up with you. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social, and I look forward to the next time we cross paths.
Good. Very good. Thank you.